Alyssa, there's something ironic about this episode because this is our 4th episode and the cleanup hitter bats 4th in the lineup. So this is batting cleanup week 4. I'm excited.
We are officially batting cleanup.
Yes, we are. Now I'm glad we did that because there's a lot of great cleanup hitters in Major League Baseball that we're not going to talk about today. We'll share some spring training stories and some fun stuff. For those at home wondering, I do have a hat. It's not on my head because I have to anchor later. It's my Chicago Cubs Southside City Connect hat. That's my hat of the week because
Nice.
I'm now making that a thing.
Yes, you should.
I pitched it last week in the show, but so we're gonna do it this week. That's the new hat this week. So, but the biggest talk I think of kind of all of Arkansas baseball is the pinstripe jerseys, right? Like enough about my hats and all of that stuff. Let's jump right into it. Those pinstripe jerseys were sweet. Like that.
Yeah.
That's just my view of those. I didn't love the Razorback, look on it. I almost kind of wanted like with the actual Razorback logo that like basketball would wear on jerseys. I think that would make it really cool, kind of match like a Cubs or Yankees where you don't have like the, Razorbacks across the chest. Rather, it's like the number, logo here.
Symbol.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. But what was your takeaway from those pinstripe jerseys?
Well, first and foremost, we'd been talking about it for a while, right? And because they're selling them, there was all the talk in the office, like, are they going to have these pinstripes? And I was like, there's no way. Like, I just don't think that they're going to change. I have never seen them change. I know DVH likes those uniforms that they wear every weekend. So I was like, I just don't know if they add something new. And sure enough, when that post came out on Tuesday with Colin Fisher's jersey, I was like, oh my God, it's real. And it's awesome. I thought that they were really cool to debut that look. I think you're right. I maybe something a little more subtle on the corner. But I'm also not, beggars can't be choosers, right? As a fan, it's alternate uniforms. The fact that we even got one, I'm happy with. I could also say could have been really cool. I love the vest style. Have you ever worn a vest style?
I have. We used to do when I was younger, like the year we were going for the Little League World Series, we did like a complete overhaul of our jerseys, and the things we all like agreed on was like, we need a vest. Like we need to wear like a vest because it was just cool. Yeah. So we had like a literally black undershirt with like the Little League logo on our sleeve and a red vest. And it was like, that's probably the cleanest jersey I've worn like throughout my entire life. I just love the vest. Like I still have it, and it's way too small on me now, but it's still in my closet in Florida.
I really think if the pinstripes would have been that vest look and then you wear the red undershirt, that would have been really, really cool. But again, beggars can't be choosers. So I was happy to see it, and hopefully they wear it more. Now, if I can just get an anthracite, like dark, I know they kind of have those grays, but a darker gray than that.
No. Anthracite is disgusting. Like anthracite is an awful color. I don't understand like people's appeal of like, oh, we're going to wear like anthracite. It just doesn't look good. Like, I think the red and the gray contrast too much. Like, that's like saying you can wear, like, navy blue and black. I think.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You should tell Mike Irwin. But,
well, I mean, I wear navy blue and black, too. Mike's 6 feet away from me.
I wasn't going to tell you, but in Ole Miss, I was like, is that what you're wearing? And you were like, yeah. I was like, okay.
I had to get in the Ole Miss spirit. They wear navy down there.
Okay. But, I thought it was cool. I really, really liked it. Hopefully we see them again. Hopefully they don't become a jersey that fans are mad at because they lose in. So off to a good start.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed they don't lose any more games in them. I know, I mean, a lot of the MLB teams do it, and it just kind of shows in a couple of SEC teams as well. Vanderbilt just released a new kind of alternate look, and Ole Miss did a cream, look. I think Clemson just did a gross jersey, which was like a USA theme where it said Clemson in like a gray, and it just didn't look good. Jacob Morris and I were texting each other the other night, just sending back and forth pictures of just jerseys.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about, we talked at basketball. I thought the Texas A&M, the black jerseys looked really, really nice.
See, and I didn't like those.
I liked those. I thought they were nice. I know it's A&M, but I like that. Florida State wears those golds. They call them our Sunday golds.
Those are cool. Those are cool.
My husband calls them pea yellow.
I think Courtney would have a similar name for those.
He's like, they're wearing their pea yellow, and I was like, it's not, it's gold. He's like, they don't look gold. I was like, well, as gold as you can get without reflecting the sun.
Right. Right.
But, yeah. So I mean, everyone has their own 2 cents on uniforms.
Exactly, and those are cool. I think I love the cream Arkansas jerseys that they have with the A. Nice. Like if it was like that baseball themed A, and I think I had to ask you like why that A is the A and not more teams do it. And it's funny because Sam Pittman way back when in the fall was like, oh, well, we're not a quote unquote letter school. And in my head, I'm like, well, baseball wears the script A. Like the script A is awesome. More teams should adapt that. But I don't know if DVH would like other teams stealing his logo. Georgia does have a cool, women's basketball has a cool like G logo with basketball in it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think baseball has earned it. They can keep it. And I don't think anyone needs to touch it.
When you're nationally relevant every year, I think you can earn it too. Anyway, before we kind of pivot off of this, we've talked some pinstripe jerseys. Is there like a favorite pinstripe jersey of all time that you have? Because mine is like the Cubs classic white and blue. I have like 4 of those with different guys. So that's like my favorite pinstripe of all time, comparing like the Arkansas pinstripe to Major League Baseball pinstripes.
Yeah. I mean, the Yankees are iconic. I wasn't a Yankee fan, but you say pinstripe, that's the first thing that pops in my head. Growing up as an Orioles fan and my grandfather being a scout for the Orioles, there were a lot of pictures on the wall with their little orange pinstripe. Mm-hmm. So I think if there's any history, I don't know if it's a favorite, but I like the one that I have the most history with is probably that one.
Yeah, those are just
the Dodgers wear pinstripes. So
no, because the Dodgers, the unique thing about the Dodgers is the red lettering on the white uniforms. I think it was something to do with like color and television. Maybe I could be way off. So if you know, like let us know what the color is. Maybe we'll have to research that for next week.
I'm gonna go look it up.
I'm surprised you didn't know what that was.
Huh?
I said I'm surprised that you didn't know that. Like
the
red lettering was.
I should, but I don't. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. But
real Dodger fan over there.
Pop in my head.
real Dodger fan. All right, let's dive into the team. Yeah, it's fine. Jacob was giving me plenty of crap over the last few days about my Cubs versus Yankees fandom.
While we continue our conversation, I'm gonna find my proof, my photo proof.
I think on the slate, and I'll pull up the opening slate. I hope it doesn't mute us. Okay, it muted us for a second, but you can see the Yankee jersey I was wearing is the pinstripe Yankee jersey, and I think there was a number 2 on the back of that jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So while you go into research for that, I'll pull up our Hagen Smith K counter, because this number in the pitching staff continues to be unfair. 31 strikeouts. Remember, we were at 2 week 1, and now after week 1, and now we're at 31. Between Hagen and Mason Molina, I mean, 31 and 29, whoever can do quick math I think that's 60 strikeouts for the pitchers for your Friday, Sunday starters. Oh, here we go. Here's the picture.
See little Alyssa with her Dodger hat.
Yes. Okay. from day one, clearly.
I had to, that's my dad's Twitter, and I had to scroll through more Nick Saban as the Dolphins head coach pictures than I thought I ever would have to, but
from like recently of Nick Saban?
I don't know. It's his media and replies, and I'm like, Dad, why do you have so much Nick Saban on your timeline? Like, what is happening? Okay, I digress.
Well, hey, Nick Saban, I think anyone looks good in those aqua and orange colors, in my opinion. I think those are some of the better colors in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty.
But we're a baseball podcast. We're not a football podcast. You'll have to tune in if we have any fun football podcasts coming up in the fall. Yeah. But half of it would probably be me talking about the Chicago Bears. Anyway, all right, let's talk pitching, because the pitching continues to be great. Our K counter for Hagen Smith set at 31 right now after 3 weeks. Remember, he had 17 against Oregon State, had 12 last weekend against, I'm blanking, Murray State. And this weekend, he'll get the Friday nod, as we all expected him to, because that pitching matchup for Friday got announced. It's Zach Voss of McNeese. He's 0-2. His ERA is 10.03, and Hagen 1-0, 2.77 ERA. And on your screen, you can see how many strikeouts he has. And that's a bit of an absurd number, if you ask me.
Yeah, you look at this staff, and Colin Fisher doesn't have his 0 ERA anymore. Yeah. But it's still
1.59.
It's still really nice. Brady Tygart right now has a 1.12, and you got to really tip your cap to these guys and what they're doing. It's not just your starters who have been really, really impressive, but it's these guys that are coming in, and your Will McIntyres and Gage Woods and Cody Franks, and these guys that are coming in and helping this bullpen win these games. It's been really impressive. And I don't want to say best pitching staff ever for Arkansas. I remember getting here in 2013, right after that season had ended, and they set the program record for team ERA, and I think it was 193 or something like that as a team. And so, there is a standard, but again, I don't want to put that into the universe. I know some people have, but I can see it possibly going that direction if they continue to stay healthy.
Right, and at 2 right now the team ERA is 2.82, and you're really only outlier. Like Courtney and I yesterday were kind of doing a deep dive on McNeese, and their top three guys have pretty low ERAs. But then you get all of those like 27, one of their guys has a 99 ERA. But when you look at this team, the only real outlier ERA-wise, and I know ERA isn't a great number, then people are kind of shifting away from that ERA batting average statistic. But Parker Coyle's 13.50 is the only ERA that's higher than 5.5. Everyone else is lower. I mean, Tate McGuire, Cooper Dawson, and Cooper Dawson's looked really good the last couple of outings, which is nice to see. But if you have one ERA that's 13.5 that's really dragging it up, you take that out and do some quick math, you're probably down to the low twos for ERA for this staff as a whole.
You are. And Parker Coyle's only had 2 appearances all year, right? And so, I remember after Hagan in that first appearance against JMU walking off field, his ERA was 27. So that is going to even itself out the more appearances he gets and the success he finds too. So, and just like these things are all going to balance themselves out. But again, you just have to be really impressed with a pitching staff outside of day one. But really, Will McIntyre came in and had a phenomenal game against JMU that first day. Has really been able to set the bar as this offense continues to find its groove.
And on the screen right now, you can see a look at the college baseball statistics from all the teams across the countries. I mean, Arkansas's pitching staff right now is number one. 99 innings pitched, 163 staff strikeouts. And keep in mind, that's technically number one because they have about 7 less innings than the number 2 team with strikeouts, and that's LSU. LSU has 106 innings pitched, Arkansas 99.1. Arkansas striking out 14.8 batters per 9 innings. And, when you're 9-2, 10-2, and that hasn't been updated this week, that's before the midweek games, through those first 3 weekends, it's pretty incredible what the staff has been able to do. And again, did they struggle against UCA? Yes, I think UCA, they're a lot better of a team than I think we gave them credit for. And again, these midweek games get a little, nutty at times. You saw Florida goes out against Miami and takes 2 of 3, then turns around a couple days later and loses to UCF for the 5th time in a row. So these midweek games are kind of crazy. I mean, LSU, for example, they were down 3-1 and came back at the end and won 4-3 against, I want to say, like Stetson. One of those teams that you don't really think are going to be up there in the, pedestal of top teams in college baseball. So, for this pitching staff, and you knew freshmen are going to have their woes. Like, Colin Fisher struggled a little bit. You knew that was coming. Gabe Gackle, the velocity wasn't up to what we've seen before with that 98, 99. It was sitting down 94, 96, but that's okay. Like Gabe Gackle, showed that he's going to be, I think Matt Hobbs called him earlier this week, the next number 1 for this staff. And I think that's going to happen probably next year because he's now headed to the Cape Cod Collegiate League. I saw that earlier today. So it's an exciting staff, and again, they continue to get better, and they'll continue to lower all of these ERAs throughout the season.
And hopefully stay healthy. You mentioned, the SEC. I think it's just really interesting. Mike was talking, and Mike loves to hate Tony Vitello for some reason. I don't understand why. But he's like, "Do you see him? Do you see him? He's all riled up again. And you know what that means?" It's like, "What, Mike? What does it mean?" "Oh, it means they're good. He's only like that when he's only loud when they're good."
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, whatever you say. But you look around the league and you have teams who only have 1 loss or 2 loss. Texas A&M is undefeated, and you look at Mississippi State, who was just in a battle with Southern Miss, and these teams that have lost midweek games. But to your point, like you talked about, these midweek teams you're playing are probably pitching one of their better arms against you, as opposed to you're looking at those midweek games as a developmental time. So There are 2 different approaches from 2 different teams. And so it's really hard to put stock in those losses when that we got their ace. We're over here just getting our guys some experience so that we can use him when we need him down the road.
Yeah, and its level of competition, and we'll get into that. And you brought up a great point with notable SEC teams. I mean, A&M, Jace Laviolette, and Braden Montgomery, 6 home runs each. They're going to be up there. Tennessee, like you were saying, pitching. That pitching staff's a bit of a question, but they're scoring 10, 11 runs per game facing these lower level teams. And Charlie Condon of Georgia, he's a dog. That's my only note on Charlie Condon when you look kind of around the SEC. And like you said, some teams are struggling. Both of the Mississippi schools aren't doing good. Mizzou, who we'll see in a couple weeks, are probably going to get blown out pretty bad when they get here. But we'll dive way into depth next week on that.
But it's
anyway,
baseball, so you never know. We don't want to put it in the universe.
That's true. I'll retract what I just put out there, but I don't think it works that way, unfortunately. But I think the biggest question mark right now through 3 weeks of this team is been, we saw in the beginning, Ty Wilmsmeyer secured that center field spot, right? Like there was no questions kind of after that first weekend. It was like, okay, Wilmsmeyer's that center field. Now really center field, left field are a bit of question marks because you have, 4 guys really in there who are kind of rotating, and some of them are hitting the ball pretty well. Some of them just aren't. And that's kind of the interesting thing when, we take a look at the field. I'll kind of scoot over so you can see me in the video box. But right now you have kind of a 4-way race between Wilmsmeyer, Edmondson, Jones, and Lovich for playing time. And that's really the most intriguing part on this team. Not to mention the infield, which we'll get to in a second with Nolan Souza and how well he's been playing.
You're itching to talk about Souza.
I really am. We haven't mentioned him a lot. I think I talked about him a little bit last week. But I'm just trying to get through a couple things before we get to Souza, because that's exciting to see a kid, the all-Hawaiian infield, which who would have guessed in Arkansas? Definitely not me. I mean, you got a kid from Philly playing here and a middle infield that's potentially at times 2 kids from Hawaii.
Yeah, gotta love it.
Absolutely, it's something cool. So
coast to coast.
That you can just see the strength of this infield depth. When it comes to actual, the infield itself. Now hitting is a different story with the infield. We've seen Eloy, who's had some really good moments, like earlier this week, the Grand Slam, and had some really bad moments where we've seen him swing and miss at pitches where we're questioning, he's just getting up there itching for that hit, and being a little bit too patient, in my opinion. Maybe should be swinging a little bit earlier in the count. And I know DVH has talked about that before. He'd like to see Eloy swing a little earlier in the count, but again, with Nolan Souza continuing to play well, Peyton Holt being kind of that heart and soul guy of this team, they're in an interesting spot, and I wouldn't call it a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, it's not. But going back to the outfield, which we talked about first, I think too, there were so many question marks heading into the season about what your outfield was going to look like, because outside of right field, that center field and left field spots were up for grabs, and it was a competition. And so competition only makes you better. And what you have is two center fielders who are very talented and 2 left fielders who are very talented. And it's a toss up on, whose day is it today?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at what Dave is probably going to do with his lineup, there are going to be guys with like, well, where's the bat looking like right now? Or I feel really comfortable DHing Will Edmonton, in the middle of a game if I need to, because I'm not going to drop off defensively. So it's not a bad problem to have. And maybe you give the other guys who aren't playing on the weekends that spot on the weekday, to balance that out a little bit more. But again, it's just so early in the season, knock on wood, you just want to stay healthy. But if you don't, you have people where things aren't going to be such a drop off on either side, defensively or offensively.
And not to mention Peyton Stovall coming back potentially next week for the midweek game. Again, we've knocked on wood a lot during this episode. But yes, you can. And it'll be interesting to see, because the spot where, people thought that Arkansas was the most deep in, which is that catcher spot, which don't get me wrong, they are. Defensively, offensively, that's the position right now that's pretty much that big struggle, because Hudson White's production is down. He's hitting 200. Ryder Helfrich, I think he's 118 right now, 2 hits, and Hudson White has 7 hits. Parker Rowland, he's only had played 2 games this season, 4 at bats, and hopefully Hudson Polk gets a little bit more action. I think you'll see him a good amount this weekend, but they need that catcher spot to start really picking up, and especially when it comes to driving in runs, because that's the concern right now for this Hog team, is can they drive in runs?
Yeah, but just as a team, I think that that's really the thing is like we just need to hit better. We
Hmm.
need to have a little bit more consistent hitting. We need to be able to hit guys in, right? Stop leaving runners on base. We need to just pick that up as a whole. And we talked about it a few weeks ago. Like hitting is contagious and it's going to get there. And there are teams right now who are hitting really, really well. We all know that baseball is what it is, and just because you're
Right.
hitting really well doesn't mean you're hitting really well at the end of the year. And
Hmm.
just because you're not hitting now doesn't mean you're not going to be hitting in the end of the year. So, you know, I don't they're still winning ball games regardless, and that's because of their pitching staff. And so you can't put too much stock into what's happening on the offense. Now, we get into SEC play and this is still an issue, then we're going to have to be like, okay, what exactly is going on
Right.
with the offense? Why can't these guys manufacture some runs? But up until now, it's a little bit of still that grace period where we're just starting baseball again, and guys are just kind of getting in their rhythms again. And I even think too with Peyton Stovall, like Peyton Stovall's going to come back, and it's probably going to take him a few games to get back into that rhythm of playing again. And the bat might not be there. The defense will, right? That doesn't really
Hmm.
go away. It's that offensive rhythm that you kind of have to get back into. And, we're going to see that when he comes back. So I'm not putting too much stock in. I just think, I think if I'm DVH, the biggest issue you have right now is who do you play in the defense, in the infield, and in the outfield, because you just have so many guys who are playing really well right now. And no one's bat is necessarily setting them apart, except, Jared Spraglott, and you can't take him out of the lineup.
And the guy you got behind you in the quote, in the little parentheses right there, he ain't doing too bad either. A 357 average.
Every strike brings me closer to a home run, said Babe Ruth or Kendall Diggs.
Well,
finally got his.
And that's what we're going to pop up right now. New graphic alert. Kendall Diggs' dinger count is officially hit 1, finally. Took him a while,
Good job, Kendall.
But you're still batting 357 and still getting on base and being able to continue to produce at the top of the lineup. So it's a cool little graphic that popped up. But I think something that's interesting, and I want to bring this up and talk about this, is an interaction I had with DVH last weekend. And to set the scene, Ben McLaughlin in the bottom of the 8th inning dropped down a bunt with 2 outs. And kind of, I'll play the clip of me and Dave interacting because it's very funny. But there's a little bit more when I really asked the question that kind of not from my perspective describing, but kind of why I think that moment was really important for Arkansas. So here's the clip. We'll play it right now.
Coach, in the 8th inning when Ben McLaughlin dropped down that bunt, was that planned or was that?
What do you think?
I don't think it was planned.
You're a baseball guy, aren't you? A
little bit.
You were. Yeah, kind of. You played, didn't you?
I did.
See,
Yes.
I ended up doing the interview. I'm asking you questions. So, no, it wasn't planned. We didn't give him that sign, and so we've been working on that a lot. When they vacate, we got our big left-handers. We call it a shift beater.
Coach, in the 8th inning when Ben McLaughlin dropped down.
Okay, there's the clip, and why I think that's important of asking him. Ben McLaughlin lays down the 2-out bunt. There's an error at first. He gets to second. The Hogs ended up scoring 2 runs that inning to mercy rule Murray State in that game too. And why I think that's important is because as much as it's kind of an unwritten rule in baseball where you don't drop a bunt down when you're up by 9, you go to the 9th and do that, I think it's important for this team because it shows that they're able to manufacture runs and that they have the ability to score runs, on any given time. And the fact that Ben dropped down that bunt, I actually kind of as a baseball fan loved it. Like that's confidence that you want to see out of this team, that they can go drop down a bunt, execute to perfection, get on first, and then take advantage of errors. And then the next 2-3 guys had singles to drive in those final 2 runs. And Ross Lovich, even after, was kind of looking around like he didn't know that they won the game, that the mercy rules, that's the second time we saw it. But for the Hogs to have that ability to generate runs like that, and it might not have been the most quote-unquote baseball fair way that a lot of, the purists of the game would like. That's kind of that new school mentality you have to have, especially in the SEC, to win these games. And again, that saves an arm for the next day, right? Like Will McIntyre didn't have to go out for another inning, or they didn't have to use Cooper Dawson again, and they were able to save them for the game on Sunday and the game on Tuesday. So it's an ability for this Arkansas team to now see them being able to score runs on will, and that's always a good signs of, like we've said, you can get runs, you can score runs, you can manufacture plays and play small ball like they did and take advantage of errors, because that's the ability, and the pitching's there. Like, we know the pitching's there, but for the Hogs to see a little thing like that, and maybe Dave took the question the wrong way at first, and maybe it's on me for asking the question the way I worded it. I loved our interaction after. Dave, if you're watching, I got a good laugh out of it. But I think it's just important for the Hogs to be able to score runs and have that ability to say we don't care who you are, like, we're going to execute a play, and they took advantage, and we're able on the back end to save arms for later.
Sure. And I think, that's that catch-22 with baseball, right? So, like, there are some good things where you're able to do those things. The game was over, you're saving your arms, all that kind of stuff. But as I was even when I was going through looking at quotes to put up on the board, like, Yogi Berra had a quote where, like, baseball isn't football. There's no such thing as trick plays. Like, there's just a purity to the game. And that's what Dave was alluding to. Was like, it's kind of an unspoken, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's where you're just like, but, I think that bit, all is forgiven, right? And
you're not pulling Ben McLaughlin out of the lineup right now.
No, you're not.
And I was glad that he didn't, even during the Sunday and midweek game.
A bunt, my man. Way to go. You can execute a bunt. That's fantastic. Now do that same thing when they actually need you to do it.
Yeah. Do it in a couple of weeks when LSU is in town and Florida's in town, and you got to win the series on a Sunday in the 8th inning, and you're down by a run. Let's see you do it then.
Right. Runner on third, 1 out, 2-1 count.
Exactly. All right, let's end with quickly our McNeese preview. This will be an interesting game. McNeese State, they're 8-5 this season. 3 losses came in a series against Texas A&M. They gave up 31 runs in 3 games against the Aggies. So pitching, is a little shifty. But the thing about them, they're 29th in RPI. So take that into perspective. They're above schools like LSU, James Madison, and Auburn. James Madison's 31 right now. LSU is somewhere in that, like, 20, in the mid-30s. Auburn's all the way down in the 60s. So they have
one.
Who's number one? Arkansas.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Arkansas is the number 1 team in the RPI. So keep that in perspective. This is a team, they have 1 road win on the season, which came at Louisiana Christian on Wednesday. And they got some good guys. They got some good hitters in Cole Plowman, Ty Abrams, Connor Westenberg. All these guys, have been able to produce for them. Westenberg, 20 for 53, 15 RBIs. Braden Duon, 388 average, 19 hits, and 9 RBIs. So this isn't a team, like we said, they're a high RPI team. They're going to come in. Their pitching staff, the guys who I listed as projected starters, well, they have not been announced as starters yet. We told you the starter for them earlier. But they got some guys. They're not a bad team whatsoever, and I think this is going to be a very fun matchup for the Hogs this weekend.
Well, I think it's indicative of Arkansas fans when Courtney yesterday in the office said, where do you think McNeese State is in the RPI? And both of us guessed. I'm not saying what we guessed, but we were not close.
Right.
And she told us. And so I think that's the thing is if you're Arkansas, you're like, oh, it's McNeese State. Like last week we played Murray State. You know what I mean? And so don't be, surprised when you go to the ballpark tomorrow and over the weekend, and this is an actual battle. And I think that this is really good for Arkansas to play a team that is so talented and so high in the RPI as they're about to start SEC play. Because you got McNeese coming in. You have Oral Roberts, who just went to the College World Series, and they lost a lot of guys on that team, but still very talented group. And then you've got Missouri at home. And so if I had to pick a non-Power 5 team to play right before SEC play starts, I think McNeese is a really good answer. And so it's going to be exciting to see how they can handle some adversity that might come their way this weekend.
Absolutely. It should be a good one. Before we go, batting cleanup extra topic right now, spring training stories. Spring training 2 weeks in. There's about 13 days left till the Dodgers and Padres open up the season out in, I think they're open up in South Korea. I don't I'm pretty sure they're opening up like out in Japan or Korea.
Things. Why you're putting me on the spot for a reason.
Well, yeah, that's kind of, as a baseball fan, I'd expect some knowledge here, but
I know. You know what? Spring football started today, sir. So
that's true. You've been up since 8. My spring football dose comes tomorrow. Any great spring training stories you got before we go? Because I got a really good one.
Oh, I don't. I just, Dodgers fans are losing their minds because yesterday they had a bad day. So, oh no, we're bad again. And, it's just, I need spring training to be over at this point so we can play real baseball games.
That's true. And it'll come
Let's
soon. My story's great. So my grandfather lives in West Palm Beach. So that's right around whenever we would go. The Nationals and Astros just moved into West Palm, so we always go to spring training. They moved in about 2017. But we've been going to like Port St. Lucie where the Mets are and Jupiter where the Marlins and Cardinals practice. And this is about 2012. I being a Cubs and Yankees fan, didn't know much about the Marlins, but my dad, who's a big White Sox fan, Ozzie Guillen, was the manager at the time of the Marlins, and he managed the Sox when they won the whole thing in 2005. And he goes to me, he's like, you should go up and get Ozzie Guillen's autograph. And I was like, oh, maybe I should. And as a little 12-year-old, I have the ball. Like, I wanted to run up to him. Maybe I was 11, whatever. So I run up to Ozzie Guillen. I chase him down in a golf cart. My sister's right behind me. I chase him down. I stop him. He signs an autograph for me and my sister. And then goes, okay, I have to go back to baseball. Drives away when like 30 other kids run up to him. So we were the only two with Ozzie Guillen signatures that day. I also have some Albert Pujols stories, but that's not important. So we ended up naming our dog Ozzie after Ozzie Guillen from that story. So spring training is always a fun time for me, always a fun time for family, and we used to always go when we were able to. So spring training, there's just nothing like spring training, and it's a great atmosphere around ballparks and to see some of the guys for the first time in new unis and all of that. So
yeah, I've never been to a spring training, so it's on the list. The Dodgers work out in Arizona.
Right.
That's not close, right? I guess when I was still working in Tallahassee, Florida State played the Mets one time, like down in Tampa, and like that was cool. But that would probably be something I need to add to a bucket list.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't even go for a spring training game. I would just go for like a day at the practice fields and to be able to walk around. Like my buddy who's out in Arizona was like, oh, come and we'll go out to Mesa for Cubs camp. And I was like, yeah, dude, like spring football, the basketball postseason, I think I'll have to wait another year for that. But spring training always a fun time. Yeah. I'm just trying to help the team. I'm a team player.
You are. Yeah.
But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Batting Cleanup. Thanks for joining us. That's Alyssa Orange. I'm Evan Camico. Arkansas and McNeese State. First pitch supposed to be tomorrow. We'll see what's going to happen with the weather. Either way, we'll have you covered all weekend long. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.